Hello. I want to share with you an observation that I had yesterday. I was speaking downtown Chicago for a company in the financial industry, and one of their representatives, or sales guys, they call them wholesalers, opened up and was speaking. And let me tell you what I find is that when he was speaking, he had his hands in his pockets, he was hunched over, and had kind of a meek demeanor. And so what I was thinking is, what kind of impact is this having on the audience? And so you got to be, do, and have in life. So you got to be before you can do, before you can have. And he wasn't being in his head what he probably was thinking that he was projecting out. And so what kind of message is that sending? And 93% of your communication is unconscious. It's your physiology and your tonality. So I want to share with you a technique called the mirror technique. The mirror technique is one you see on movies when people are trying to decide how they're going to talk to their boss or talk to a lady, or they're trying to rehearse in the mirror, and it's usually a comical scene in a movie. But I've been using the mirror technique since I would remember the first time of being in college, and I'm not 100% sure where I got it from, but whenever I'd practice my speeches for speech class in college, I was a communication major and a finance minor, so I would practice communication. I would for my speech classes, my debate classes, I'd practice in the mirror. I remember I'd put up my ironing board as my podium and practice in the mirror. To this day, I still practice in the mirror. For instance, before I go on stage all the time, I'll go in the bathroom and start jumping around and looking in the mirror and talking to myself. Luckily nobody's ever walked in on me in these public bathrooms in these offices. Now before I left yesterday morning, I do a 10-minute ritual in the mirror in my bathroom, talking and speaking and doing incantations, and I practice a few of my lines and just get my physiology right. And one thing you can just ask is, a simple methodology is, does fear show up in your physiology? Absolutely. When somebody's fearful, it shows up in how their body's acting. Does courage show up in your physiology? Yes, it does. I believe in something called the 5 C's, and there are 5 different states that you could stack on top of themselves in it's a neuro-linguistic programming technique. But you can get in the proper state, and that shows up in your physiology. So the internal pictures you make in your head, the state that you put yourself in, shows up in your physiology. And then one way to get into this state and see how you're projecting into the world is practice in a mirror. You have to use the mirror. Rehearse your goals in the mirror. Rehearse what you're trying to accomplish in the mirror. Rehearse your presentations in the mirror. And by doing so, you're going to see the physiology that you're projecting onto the world, and your tonality projects onto the world. One thing I get is sometimes that, Matt was in this meeting and he was talking like he was speaking to 50 people. Well, damn it, I am speaking to 50 people all the time, and I want my message heard. So what's the physiology and tonality that you're projecting out? And so when you have a big presentation, when you're going to go ask for a raise from your boss, when you're rehearsing your goals, rehearsing how you want to act in the world, is use the mirror technique. Practice in the mirror. Rehearse your goals in the mirror. Stand if somebody would stand as if they've already attained those goals that you're reading in the mirror. And the very simple idea of the mirror technique is, do you have the corresponding physiology for what you're trying to project into the world? Because people are reading your physiology, and you have to be before you could do, before you could have. Practice the mirror technique.